Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buheit, the minister of this congregation. We are so glad you have chosen to join us in worship. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm that we need not think alike to love alike, meaning that we are a faith community woven together in shared covenant, rather than a singularity of belief. This is the covenant that binds us. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. If that sounds like the kind of community you've been seeking, please see our website, uuamherst.org, and get to know us better. I'm delighted to share the virtual pulpit today with my colleague, Reverend Ian W. Riddell, who is the assistant minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert in Rancho Mirage, California. He served as Minister of Music and Worship Arts at the First UU Church of San Diego for 4 years, before relocating to the Coachella Valley with his husband and beloved Russell Terriers. Before FUUSD, Reverend Ian served as a Developmental Minister for the UU Congregation of Las Vegas. He was ordained in 2012 after graduating from Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is where Ian and I met. Before entering full-time ministry, Reverend Ian served 3 congregations as music director. I'm looking forward to Reverend Ian's message that continues our thread of imagination. New worlds, terrifying monsters, and impossible things. We begin our worship together by lighting the flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism that embodies the light of reason and the search for truth and meaning, the warmth of friendship and community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more justice and compassion to a hurting world.
And now, let us light our chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
The campus of UU Amherst was once occupied by the Seneca Nation, one of the tribes that make up the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Today, we acknowledge the relationship they cultivated and nourished with this land. We are the grateful heirs of this deep connection. We say, Nyahweh, thank you, in the Seneca language. We acknowledge the hurt that has been perpetrated toward Indigenous people, and we covenant to live with respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. We give away our gratitude for the beauty and resiliency of this lovely planet that birthed us, nourishes and sustains us, and that will receive us back when life has used us up.
Sky Color by Peter Reynolds. Marisol was an artist. She loved to draw and paint, and she even had her very own art gallery. Not all her art hung in a gallery. Much of it she shared with the world. She painted posters to share ideas she believed in. At school, Marisol was famous for her creative clothes, her box of art supplies, and her belief that everyone was an artist. Yes, Marisol was an artist through and through. So when her teacher told the class they were going to paint a mural for the library, Marisol couldn't wait to begin. The classroom buzzed with the sound of brainstorming. The students talked and sketched. Together, they made a great big drawing, and then they marched to the library. I'll paint a fish. I'll paint one too. I'll paint the ocean. Marisol shouted, I'll paint the sky. Marisol rummaged through the box of paint, but could not find any blue. How am I going to make the sky without blue paint? She said. The bell rang. It was time to put their brushes down for the day. As she climbed aboard the bus, Marisol kept wondering, All the way home, she stared out the window. The sun lowered closer to the horizon. Later at home, Marisol watched day turn into night. That night, Marisol settled into a deep dream. She drifted through a sky swirling with colors, the colors mixed, making too many to count. In the morning, Marisol stood waiting for the bus in the rain. The sky was not blue. She smiled. At school, Marisol raced to the library. She grabbed a dish and began adding colors. This one, that one. She swirled the brush to make an altogether new color. Marisol then began painting on the wall. A boy asked, "What color is that?" "That?" Marisol said. "That is sky color."
Let us sing this song for the turning of the world, that we may turn as one. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our turning. Let us sing this song for the loving of the world, that we may love as one. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our loving. Let us sing this song for the healing of the world, that we may heal as one. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our healing. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along. With every voice and every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echo of our healing. And our lives will feel the echo of our healing.
Our reading this morning is excerpts from Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Everyone knows that change is inevitable, from the second law of thermodynamics to Darwin's evolution, from Buddhism's insistence that nothing is permanent and all suffering results from our delusions of permanence, to the third chapter of Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. Change is part of life, of existence, of the common wisdom. But I don't believe we're dealing with all that means. We haven't even begun to deal with it. Things are changing now too. Our adults haven't been wiped out by a plague, so they're still anchored in the past, waiting for the good old days to come back. but things have changed a lot, and they'll change more. Things are always changing. This is just one of the big jumps instead of the little step-by-step changes that are easier to take. God is change, and in the end, change prevails. God prevails. But God exists to be shaped. It isn't enough for us to just survive, limping along, playing business as usual while things get worse and worse. If that's the shape we give to God, then someday we must become too weak, too poor, too hungry, too sick to defend ourselves. Then we'll be wiped out. There has to be more that we can do, a better destiny we can shape, another place, another way, something. No one can stop change, but we all shape change whether we mean to or not. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change.
I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. Now the low part. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves. We'll do that part two more times. In perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground till I saw the earth in motion, the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, and the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion.
Good morning. It's really wonderful to be with you here today. I spent so much of my time over the past weeks glued to my computer, glued to the television set and to my phone, paying attention to what's happening in our country, paying attention with hope and fear and some wondering about what will come next. It's an amazing thing when so many people are focused on one event. Almost 52 years ago, on July 20th, 1969, the whole world was glued to its television sets and radios. Something huge was about to happen, something that took decades of technological innovation and imagination and a whole lot of money. On that day, millions of people heard Neil Armstrong say, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Thousands and thousands of people worked thousands and thousands of hours making that one moment happen, fulfilling a promise made by John F. Kennedy years before, yes, but also fulfilling a dream that had a long history in the human imagination, the dream of a human being setting foot on another world. It took the work of all of those people, building and bringing into the reality the ideas of brilliant scientific and technological thinkers. But these scientists and thinkers and technologists were inspired by the science fiction visions of writers such as H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and the films of Fritz Lang. These early pioneers of science fiction hadn't just filled readers' minds with escapist tales of traveling to the center of the earth, or encountering alien life, or traveling to other planets or our moon. They had deeply influenced and inspired minds and wills that would go on to bring those imaginings into reality. These books and films directly led to Neil Armstrong speaking those words more than 50 years ago now. Now, the title of today's sermon comes from the beginning of the second season of the current Doctor Who television series. "Think you've seen it all," says the Doctor. "Think again. Outside those doors, we might see anything. We could find new worlds, terrifying monsters, impossible things. And if you come with me, nothing will ever be the same again." These words are part of an invitation to explore, an invitation into possibility. This is the invitation that many of us find offered to us as we explore stories and imaginings that we call science fiction. Now, science fiction is a broad term describing a genre of fiction, stories, novels, comics, television, and movies that explore the possibilities of the future and of technology. Wikipedia says that science fiction, quote, typically deals with imaginative and futuristic concepts, such as advanced science and technology, time travel, parallel universes, fictional worlds, space exploration, and extraterrestrial life. It often explores the potential consequences of scientific innovations. Now, despite commonly being understood as beginning with the writings of Edgar Allan Poe, H.G. Wells, and Jules Verne near the end of the 19th century, many consider Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein to be an early example. And even before then, writers and thinkers had explored the possibilities of technology and new worlds. Even in Paradise Lost, for example, we see Milton exploring the concept of multiple worlds and universes. Wherever we define its boundaries, for me, science fiction is the literature of what if, of possibility, of wonder. Before we moved to Cathedral City, my husband and I lived in San Diego for 4 years. San Diego, which hosted an annual gathering that pretty much was the high holy days for the geeks and nerds and fans of the world, the San Diego Comic-Con. Comics and the media phenomena that they had given birth to, television and movies especially, are a big deal these days. They make a lot of money for a lot of people, and they bring enjoyment to many, many more. So I'll make a confession to you today. I'm a great, big, huge comic book nerd. As I'll share in a bit, many other parts of the science fiction world are really important to me, but it all started with comic books. Now, I was never a fan of the biggest characters, though. Batman and Superman, Spider-Man, on their own, just didn't do it for me. I loved The Flash, and I loved Wonder Woman. But it was the team books that captured my heart. The Justice League of America, the Teen Titans, the Legion of Superheroes. Here I found diverse groups of heroes coming together to save the world and make it a better place. Different powers, different origin stories, different relationships, all coming together in stories that spanned galaxies and time. And it was in comic books that I encountered the idea that there were multiple realities, multiple universes interacting with each other. Different characters maybe sharing a set of identities and powers, but doing it differently in different relationships. I was learning that diversity, such as it was in 1970s comics, was a positive, powerful thing. I was learning that new worlds were possible. I think about the work that we are doing in our congregations and denomination these days. Work towards inclusion and welcome and belonging. Work toward envisioning who and what will be in the future. Moving from reactivity to reconstructing systems and ways of being. And I think about the work we are desperate to do in the wider country. Work of rebuilding oppressive systems. Work of resisting tyranny and white supremacy and violence. And I am encouraged to seek out new ways of seeing. I find I've been learning new ways to live into this work as I remember the ways that science fiction has influenced my ways of thinking. I remember in the movie Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, at a moment of potential defeat, that James Kirk, Captain Kirk, says, "I don't believe in the no-win scenario." He says, as Mr. Spock is fond of saying, "I like to think that there always are possibilities." Science fiction can offer us new vision if we're paying attention. Sometimes it allows us to examine our own world and lives through a distancing lens so we see things differently or more clearly. The television series Star Trek Deep Space Nine is set on a space station near the planet Bajor, a planet recently liberated from a dominating occupation by the Cardassians. Through the lens of the stories of people and cultures grappling with the realities of life after occupation, and in the face of the return of war, the show explores colonialism, war, occupation, recovering from occupation, and the sources of hope and strength in science and in faith. It's about new technologies and encountering new worlds, yes, but it's also about the human condition that we live in now. Often, science fiction allows us to explore what things might be like with new technologies. The what if I talked about earlier. A favorite author of mine, Lois McMaster-Bujold, writes a series of novels centered around a young man, Miles Vorkosigan, in a galaxy colonized by humans. Now, the series is ostensibly space opera, which means its focus is on cultures and planets and the politics of their interactions. But one of the things at its heart is a wondering about what the impact would be on human culture and ambitions if there were such things as a uterine replicator, a technology that allows human embryos to be gestated and genetically manipulated outside of the human body. What would that mean for the lives of women? What would it mean for our societies, our politics, our science? And sometimes science fiction asks us to imagine whole new ways of being, whole new ways of leading, whole new ways of imagining. Science fiction in many forms has had influence in powerful ways. Writer and activist Adrienne Marie Brown's book, Emergent Strategy, is a rich example. Near the beginning of her book, Brown takes the time to lay out her lineage, the sources of her inspiration, attitudes, perspectives, and focuses that she has brought together in herself. She lists the Black Panthers. She lists Black feminist authors Audre Lorde, June Jordan, Lucille Clifton, and Toni Cade Bambara. She lists thinkers such as Margaret Wheatley. And she explicitly pays attention to the impact that the writings of Black science fiction author Octavia Butler have had in grounding her worldview. She cites Butler's earth seed philosophy, as laid out in her novels The Parable of the Sower and The Parable of the Talents, as central to her imagining the work of emergent strategy. Now, the central notion of earthseed is that change is the deepest reality. It is the divine force of the universe. It is God, as I explained in our reading, and that we are in an intimate relationship with God through the way we manage and create change. All successful life, writes Butler, is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, interconnected, and fecund. Understand this, use it, shape God, she says. Now, Brown is inspired by the central character of these novels, Lauren Oya Olamina, and the way that she crafts leadership through education, connection, interconnectedness, and truth, rather than through coercion and force. These inspirations are not just pieces of a story that bring Brown pleasure. Encountering them forms her vision and attitudes, is a springboard for deeper imagining of what is possible in our world. She writes, "I would call our work to change the world science fictional work. Being concerned with the way our actions and beliefs now, today, will shape the future, tomorrow, and the next generations. Because if we can't articulate more viable futures and adapt, our human future is pretty hopeless. We must imagine new worlds that transition ideologies and norms so that no one sees Black people just as murderers or brown people as terrorists and aliens, but all of us as potential cultural and economic innovators. This is a time travel exercise for the heart," she says. "This is a collaborative ideation. What are the ideas that will liberate all of us?" Science fiction, specifically Butler's writing, but also the worlds imagined in works such as the Star Wars and Matrix films. Science fiction is central to the work the world needs us to be doing, she says. She writes that science fiction is simply a way to practice the future together. At the human scale, in order to create a world that works for more people, for more life, we have to collaborate on the process of dreaming and visioning and implementing that world. We have to recognize that a multitude of realities have, do, and will exist. When we tell stories of new worlds, new possibilities, we open space in our hearts and in our own worlds for new possibilities as well. Now, one thing I want to be clear about as we think about the influence of science fiction is that even when we understand it to be exploring possibilities and new worlds, we can't forget that the viewpoints of the creators can be stuck in old ways of seeing and being. There are a lot of stories out there that are just old ideas polished up with warp drives and ray guns. Just because a story is set in the future or involves people with amazing abilities doesn't make that story visionary or forward-looking. The science fiction magazines and comic books of the mid-20th century are full of jingoism and misogyny and might makes right. And there's plenty of that stuff still around. Like so many other creative fields, speculative fiction, science fiction, is grappling with issues of violence and reactionary attitudes in its fandom and among its creators. But the very notion of that what if that motivates speculative fiction means that possibility has always been there, imagining beyond the boundaries of current ways of thinking and being. When Kennedy announced that the United States would land on the moon by the end of the decade, the technology and resources to do so did not yet exist. But the inspiration, The vision of what might be possible, that was there in spades in the hearts and minds of scientists and technicians, in the hearts and minds of the general public. One of the reasons it was there was that storytellers and filmmakers had already imagined it and planted the seeds of possibility. The stories we tell, the stories we read and hear and watch, the stories we invite into our lives change us. They shape the way we see the world. They mold our understanding of our place in that world. They present us opportunities to imagine new possibilities and new hopes, new relationships, new challenges, new worlds that are more just, more rich, more embracing, more curious. It doesn't matter if these worlds are in different times or in different planets or in different dimensions, because they shape us and allow us to imagine new ways to shape the reality around us. I am more able to imagine multiple possibilities because I read all those comic books in my childhood. I am better able to see and hear the perspectives of others because I've spent my life with Star Trek. I am better able to be curious about my own identity and the moral outcomes of my actions because I've traveled with the Doctor. And I am better able to imagine new possibilities for leadership and justice because I've journeyed with Octavia Butler's Lauren Oya Olamina and Ursula Le Guin's Ged and Genli I and Madeline L'Engle's Meg and with Wonder Woman and with the Legion of Superheroes. These things have not just been pleasant escapes for me. They have shaped me and who I am. What you have read and watched and listened to has shaped you just the same, even if you don't see it right now. So I'm going to offer you a challenge. When you're finished the story that you're currently watching or reading or listening to, when you're there on the website of your favorite bookstore or comic shop, with a remote control in your hand, ready for Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or HBO, when you're ready to choose the next story to bring into the life of your mind, choose something new. Choose a story created by someone who is not like you. Seek out new sources of resources and inspiration. Ask people you look up to and who inspire you what they are reading and watching and listening to. What different futures we might imagine if we didn't just read and watch work that grew out of the experiences of white men like Isaac Asimov and Gene Roddenberry and Stan Lee. But if we also read and watched work that grew from the lives and heritage of African Americans like Octavia Butler and Samuel Delaney and N.K. Jemisin, or West Africans like Nnedi Okorafor, or Chinese writers like Liu Cixin, or Japanese writers like Haruki Murakami, or indigenous writers like Eden Robertson. What new possibilities might we imagine? Adrienne Marie Brown writes, "We have to imagine beyond our fears. We have to ideate, imagine, and conceive together. We must imagine new worlds that transition ideologies and norms. This is a time travel exercise for the heart." Change is coming. Change is here. What is on the other side of that change and how we will get there and who we will be in community depends on us. It depends on our commitment to our values. It depends on our vision and our imagination. May that vision be broad and loving and curious and just and open to endless possibilities. May it be so.
Into faith set free from call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of a living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you for joining us in worship today. Please see the credits at the end of this service for information about the music and other worship elements. And do take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link, or text your gift to 833-987-1968. We close this time of worship as we extinguish our chalice.
And now we will extinguish our chalice. We extinguish his flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step.
Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend.
Rejoice and come in, rejoice and come in, and there will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Open your ears to the song, open your ears to the song, and there will be a joyful day. Open your ears to the song.